morning. I'm Karen Hayes Ryan, and this is my colleague Bill Young. We're here live at GEOINT Symposium 2025, and we're here to address the question a lot of you have been wanting to know. What is Project Geospatial, and how in the world does Adam Simmons get industry partners, academia, and government people to share their strategies, ideas, products, and future plans for the geospatial industry? Bill?
Who is Adam Simmons?
Okay. We're starting strong here, aren't we? Oh boy. Okay, so my little elevator. I was prior Air Force for 7 years, and so I started out as an imagery analyst on paper. And what I mean on paper is I quickly evolved beyond that to be I was a technologist, and my commanders and leadership recognized that early on. It enabled me to do quite a bit that were untraditional. So what that meant is I got to bring a lot of technology into the Air Force really early. Worked in the weapons and tactics unit department quite a bit, working on new ideas and fleshing that out for a lot of people. And that helped me understand technology across the board within the immediate DoD bubble that I was in. Then I moved to the Pentagon, was a liaison to the NRO and NGA, working on a lot of special projects. I got my hands into quite a bit, trying to collaborate. But I also recognized one of the big things that was a huge issue was a lack of awareness about what one program was doing compared to another, and the redundancy that was happening between dozens and dozens of them. So one of the, we'll call it pet projects I had that I started was right before I left the Air Force, unfortunately, was sort of an internal podcast. I get program managers on. It's called Keylinks, and the Air Force Media Department helped me out with it, and we brought in a couple program managers that initially talk about their program, like basically like the GVS program, for example, or the NRO BVI program, and man, some of the cool projects that they were going on ADF East that they were able to talk about, and really it was starting to bridge that gap, and a lot of people were like, wow, we need something to have a sense of awareness more than just waiting for the next program manager meeting. And I was like, oh, I can do something with this. Unfortunately, I left the Air Force. I jumped between a lot of commercial entities after that. Started with GEOI. They were kind enough to hire me for really cheap, apparently. I was making $60,000 right off the gate. Right. I almost went to Australia instead because the Australian government was hiring a lot of veterans from the Air Force. But I decided, no, I'll stick around here. And jumped around GEOI, stick with them till Digital Globe, BAE Systems for about a year, working some activity-based intelligence. And I was Black Sky's actually first and only analyst for 2 years. And they actually had to hire an entire analytical cell to replace me. And then afterwards I said, you know what, I'm gonna try doing it on my own, and became a consultant and technical consultant. I know there's quite a bit I do not do, but I supplement a lot of BD and salespeople and user engagement individuals so I can help them understand the customer better. And that's essentially my day job, is helping people understand and tell stories about the products and services and help them relate better to their clients. And that's essentially, it's actually bringing a lot of marketing techniques from the rest of the world that we're used to in the DoD and defense and intel spaces, right? Marketing, I think, is one of the most under-invested areas of our sector, because why do you need to market so much if you get just a contract out the day, if you just have really good contracts and proposals? Anyway, long story short, who I am, I love working on a lot of projects in technology. And along the way, over the course of 10 years, parallel all that, last 15 years actually now, is I started Project Geospatial with a couple people. I'll say Mason Rothman and Andrea Simmons at the time. It started out as a podcast, and they fizzled out their interest over time, but I kept with it. And officially in 2020, we founded it as a nonprofit. And we've been doing amazing work ever since. It's been growing, and honestly, even though that I, get my source of income elsewhere, I think it's my biggest passion for the last 5 or 6 years, or even longer than that. But that's kind of kept me going and excited about this industry. So, who is Adam Simmons? I have a lot of things: photographer, videographer, astrophotographer, traveler, bootlegger of wine.
Bootlegger.
So all kinds of things.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So that's a long intro.
So Adam, tell us how you select the companies that you interview at all of these GEOINT symposiums.
Oh boy. So we started off years ago, we started off walking the floor. I used to spend Sunday in the first hour or two of the expo on Monday just inventorying who's here and asking them if they want to do interviews. We used to do interviews right at the booth. And that was a lot of legwork. There's a lot of carrying a lot of camera equipment everywhere and not sure if we were going to get it. And so the first couple of years, we maybe only got maybe 10 or 12 interviews per GEOINT. But we developed the system, brought in interns, brought in cameras, brought in traction, got a better relations with the press room. So we set up a system in which we can send large groups of individuals invites for appointments on a case-by-case basis. Now, you're like, hey, why don't we shut this out for everybody? Well, there's only so many interview slots, and what we want to do is give people an equal opportunity to interview so we learn more about them. For example, the small businesses, right, and maybe the companies who, like the 8A companies who don't get a lot of attention, for example, of what they do, or the companies that are just starting out who don't ever have any budget for a marketing team. So we like to focus on those or have a better understanding what's going on maybe some of the ecosystems. That's why I like partnering with the Greater St. Louis folks, because they connect with a lot of companies that are local here that are doing amazing work. And whether you're big, medium, or small here, they have an interesting way of collaborating with each other. So we like bringing them on. But the other major way is relying on people like yourself, Karen, and who have amazing connections, because I don't know it all. I definitely don't. And you're well connected to what companies are actually having some really cool emerging technologies and endeavors, or really interesting people who care about the community that we can talk about and tell their stories.
So you've done, how many interviews would you say you've done?
In the last 15 years, yeah. I've kind of count. Not all of these are actually on YouTube, but I've done close to over 1,000.
Wow.
And recorded that are public over 500. Can
you pick out like one or two that were kind of like your favorites?
Interviews and recorded sessions. So actually one of the early ones we did, this is back in 2014 or 15. I'm a little fuzzy on the year. There was this guy working on this. This is really, really early on the days of, it's still everybody's crazed about Google Earth still, yeah, back in the day. But even after it was sort of fizzling out, the rest of the world was still doing really awesome things with it. And one of the cool things is there was this guy from Australia that hopped around the world, and he built these 360 screens. And he went into museums and built these screens. So basically, this is before augmented reality and VR, but so he can allow people to stand in the middle of these massive screens and have this experience where if you can go back in time and visualize what it'd be like to be in the middle of this this historical location, like a museum or a like somewhere in Greece, like it was like you were thousands of years ago. And you can see that. And you basically would zoom into Google Earth, navigate and tour through, and it felt like you were like flying through. And it was really cool. And nowadays it's like, man, we can do so much more than that. But back then it was the coolest thing. He piped us into the feed virtually at the time, and he was able to walk us through all this stuff. And we had a live demo and everything. He would like turn this camera around mobile, and it was like it was kind of wild. And this guy from Australia was telling this amazing story how he built this thing from scratch. And he did it for fun at first, and he traveled the world just basically making these 360 displays. So that was really, really good one.
Yeah.
So that was one of my favorite. Nothing significant as beyond it was really, really cool, yeah, technology. The other one I like from an interview standpoint was, and I wish I can. I am absolutely atrocious with names. I deal with so many names every day,
Right.
and I really wish I can remember her name. I'll right this moment. But there's this woman that we interviewed that was part of NASA Harvest, and I want to say this is in 2020, not long after the Geospatial Revolution, Geospatial Frontier conference we did, and she was part of NASA Harvest, and she was talking about how she worked on a lot of projects to map out and help the locals map out all the, I believe it was water wells. And she had a really amazing story about using the NASA sensor data to do all this. It was incredible, and attached to this, I'll make sure we put it in the notes so you can find it. I can easily find her name if I have my stuff in front of me. So, but that was another good one. The last one I'll mention is still one of my favorites from one of the events that we covered. I didn't interview this, but we cover a lot of events too. And I would say that would have been one of my favorites to watch was, this is tied. Pete Doucette from USGS gives an amazing keynote about Landsat. This was Fed Geo Day 2023, and just incredible. And it was like, wow, this guy just spent must have been hours on this presentation, clear and concise, and he talks about not just the technology but the impact it's made overall. So it was one of the coolest presentations I saw. Next to the open source, Paul Ramsey is legendary in the open source community, and he gives an amazing keynote as well. So believe it or not, I don't see very many keynote speakers that impress me over the years, but two of those were just kind of resonating with me pretty heavily.
Can I do a follow-on real quick?
Go for it.
So you named about, 2 or 3 or 4 there.
Yeah.
So Karen and I from last year were we in the top 5, top 10?
Oh boy.
And then follow on to
Inquiring
that.
minds want to know.
Second part on that question would be then your favorite between the two.
Oh. Well, first of all, I'll answer the second part first. Karen, of course, is my favorite.
Okay.
However,
Questions are going to get harder.
Different for different reasons. You are hilarious, first of all. So I love having you on for comedic reasons. But if I were to put a value to it, Karen has been incredibly helpful to remind me to care about the people that we interview, and that part is I can't put a true value on that. That's amazing. Now, her introducing me to you and learning more about a lot of the stuff we've overlapped with, and I mean, I would never get an interview done if I had to do something alongside you the whole time, because you're hilarious. So
he turned that right around on me.
I just
Yeah,
think
right.
still I was the favorite, and that's what really
That's what he
Look,
said.
I
heard
think
that too.
I think you all were one of the you're in the top 10 in terms of more enjoyable sessions we had in the last couple of years. Definitely, like having a 3-person fireside chat in terms of what's going on would be great. Now, if I can get us to talk about, or 2 of you in some panel together and just talking about the good old times of your careers, that would be hilarious.
Well, we've been on panels together plenty at a GEOINT
But
symposium.
you're talking about formal stuff, right?
True.
True.
We need to talk about the history, legacy, and maybe some of the stories that people don't hear about that built up to, maybe some of the struggles. Almost like an office setup. How.
Adam, those are on a need-to-know basis. We'd have to get those through publications and public affairs.
I know Rebecca Courtney's popping around here somewhere
it's
from
a whole
NGA.
thing. It's a whole
OCC
thing.
I'm sure she'd love to hear all this.
Those skiff conversations are really not for prying eyes or ears.
Yeah, we'll get a camera crew following you around everywhere. I'm sure we got some good stories to tell from just GeoINT the last 2
no,
years.
we'll be like The Office.
Yeah.
So when you talked about some of the small businesses, when you look at the small, the medium, the large businesses, which ones are easier to interview? Which ones do you feel are the most open about their capabilities, their technology?
Okay, so there's a mix. I would say it's not really about. So the large ones are very good about having a more organized marketing, and everybody already knows them, so their stories are pretty easily to tell. However, the more focused the company is with their business model, for example, if you're a collections company, you're working on, you're a SAR collector, it's a lot easier to understand who you are and what you do. If you're a bigger defense company and you're basically have sectors of your company that do pretty much everything, that's a struggle from a conversation you want to tell. So I have somebody on from that. They say, yeah, we're such and such, and we do all these things, and people have a hard time identifying why they should even go to them for anything because they don't know how to identify your unique differentiators at that point. It tells me that your business model is not great to sell yourself across traditional marketing channels, and you've built your entire business model off of writing good contracts and proposals. So it's debatable whether you need to be good at telling your story at all, other than telling your story good on paper for those contracts, and or making sure you know how to tell that story to maintain a customer after you sign a contract so that you can do a good follow-on. And that's hard for the bigger businesses. The bigger businesses need to do a better job of telling their narrative across who they are, like what's the difference between you and your competitors. Why should the government choose you over somebody else? Or why should, if you're doing this great product for them that you're on contract for, do people like it? Do you want to do a great follow-on? Now the small companies, what they struggle with, they are a lot more hyper-focused, but they don't know how to tell their story very well at all, because once again, most of them don't have a great marketing team. Yeah. A lot of them are engineers that have a great idea, or analysts that are trying to start something from scratch, but they don't necessarily how to talk to people. They don't know how to talk to senior executives to sell their stories. So there's a good mixture all over the place. Or you get a situation like we had last year, where I won't name names, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, where we had a company have a knee-jerk reaction to another big company, and they just wanted to get on camera just for the attention. Yeah. And those are not interviews that after we do the interview with them, we just toss it out the window and say, hey, this is where you need to do better, because this isn't going to look good if we show it for you or us. So
I was looking at your website this morning again, right? Geospatial Frontiers.
Oh,
is
yeah.
That with the articles, right? And so it looks like you've gained a lot of insights from attending the conferences, your own research, your background, right? And the interviews that you've had. So can you talk a little bit about Geospatial Frontiers? Several good articles on there, great articles on there, actually. And then what kind of challenges or trends do you see going on for GEOINT in the community?
Okay, let's start with the first one. Geospatial Frontiers. We had a blog at one point, like 10 years ago. I stopped it because I just didn't have enough time. But you know what? It's funny. The more I do this, the more I want to write more things down. I have a lot of notes, and I want to put stuff out there. I do like writing. So I decided to kick this up, especially I made a deal with myself that it wasn't going to all be me. I'm going to try and get more contributors from the industry to help out. Matter of fact, so let's back up. Geospatial Frontiers is a new publication by Project Geospatial, and we want to write more comprehensive articles that talk about the major issues, or write more comprehensive educational pieces about the industry as a whole. And so our first guest author was Keith Barber, and he wrote this really good article about basically a good conceptual piece on what the business and economy of commercial imagery could look like. So he talked about the issues and maybe what it could look like from an action item standpoint of if we change things and evolve things into a better paradigm. So the other couple things that I focused on was basically putting a camera or a focus point on the geodesy crisis. That was a hard one because I actually did a number of video interviews that never got published over the last 2 years with various people in the government and outside the government about what's going on with geodesy. And I always wanted to make that a series, but didn't quite have enough traction with the individuals. And of course, with the current administration, a lot of people were feared to talk about it. So I wanted a way to put all those notes into something that I can talk about the entire crisis, keep it apolitical, but just talk about the actual situation and keep everybody's names out of it. So I wrote just talking about what the geodesy crisis was, and the last one was, once again, same thing, keeping it apolitical, talking about the fiscal year 26 budget. And it's not about the budget itself, it's about the interdependency and connection between, people to understand the interdependencies between all of the different government agencies. USGS, NOAA, NASA, and many, many others, U.S. Census, they all actually rely on each other for data and relationships and getting the job done. And so you can't just say, oh, we're going to increase funding for NGA and DoD without understanding the consequences if the budgets are cut in half with all the other agencies, because all the ones you're increasing budgets for actually do rely on quite a few services from the others that actually don't get talked about at all. And you can increase a budget not realizing you're going to fill those gaps, those new voids, with the higher budget that you have. So you're not really getting an increase at all. You might actually be getting a negative. So, and that's just something, it was really more highlighting a concern more than that is something that is happening, because there's a lot of complexities that I'm sure that the government will address to hopefully account for some of those things.
So a potential challenge that might materialize.
Yeah, and I feel like there was a second question to that, and I'm not sure if I addressed it. So.
You did kind of on that. I was just asking about, challenges or opportunities or things that you've seen highlighted from the interviews and from the events that you've been.
Yeah,
and based on your background.
Yeah, in the public. Oh yeah, the trends. So I think the biggest trend is I'm not avoiding the topics of machine learning and AI and what we're doing. We cover a lot of companies here that do all that, but I think people get stuck on. It's like man, when we went to everybody's going into the cloud era and things like that. What people are not always making the connection for, and this is also how you tell stories with small companies and big companies, is making those connections with those trending technologies back to actually how are you improving the current workflow? Because in my opinion as an analyst, and this is just a perspective I have, is the mission has not truly changed at all in the many, many, many decades. We still have the same type of mission. We're still answering the same types of questions. It's a question of how we're doing it. And I think that's always get lost. Are we improving the lifestyle of the analyst, or are we addressing how we're improving the mission? And that's another thing I'm trying to always try to get across to people, especially my clients outside of Project Geospatial, is the mission has some overlap with the analysts, but they're completely different. And when you go and build products, a lot of people always use we're gonna help the analysts out. It's like, no, you should start with you're helping the mission first. Yeah. The government, at least the military, or at least the DoD, is not a welfare organization, and they have a mission and a cause, and there's a reason why we're doing things. And I hate to say it, but technology today could easily, everybody's trying to avoid the fact that machine learning, well, we're going to help and augment analysts. But there's a reality that says that we could replace analysts too. And we could be doing a lot with a reduced intel and information workforce. But you're always going to need guys on the ground to do the work at the end of doing the actual work on when you deploy people and do all that. But how many people do you need behind the scenes actually providing the information? You still need people to make the decisions, of course, but all those people helping those folks get the information. I mean, in a lot of ways, not to oversimplify it, but we were all cogs in the machine. Yeah. I mean, I was a bean counter once upon a time. That's how I was used, just to count stuff on an image and just identify it, label it, and then just write a report about it. I mean, unless I required to put an analytical opinion about what I think is going on, and most of the time they didn't like us doing that as much. It's not talked about. Just count the beans. Somebody else will write an opinion up higher up.
Just the facts, man. Just
exactly. The facts. It's the facts. So it's less about the human element and accomplishing the mission.
Thanks.
So I think that trend is still always there, and that's the best way to actually tell. Well, you want to tell the story about the human element, but I don't think it should always be focused on the analyst. It's the impact of the mission. Sure. That's where you talk about where the human element is, where the mission is affecting humans on the other side. So. Yeah.
So Adam, people think of the GEOINT Symposium and they think about NGA, which is one of the bigger government presence at most of these historically. What other government organizations have you met with and interviewed as part of the GEOINT Symposium?
Okay, not here. Well, not in this particular symposium, 2025. Well, so here we've had the pleasure of talking with Oak Ridge National Laboratories.
Carter, another
Carter Christopher.
Carter Christopher,
Carter Christopher,
another NGA alum like Bill and I.
We've had to talk to USGS, Dan Opstill in the Civil Applications Committee. We were in the Air Force together, so we talk quite frequently, and I love the work that USGS is doing. Matter of fact, one of my, I'm hopefully I can do this one year, but I'm trying to convince them to do a great story about the history of their map library down in the basement of the USGS, because they have historical maps that you can actually touch with your hands if you get in there. They go all the way back, well, hundreds of years, but you can actually see and pull out the physical maps that Lewis and Clark actually touched, which is really cool. But anyway, we've done stuff with, once again, NASA, NOAA, U.S. Census. We've had a few foreign government people on over the years, and I honestly can't remember off the top of my head who those were. Maybe, let's see, who else? We have had a few state government individuals on from multiple counties in geographies. I know I'm forgetting a few people.
I know you had Treasury the one year.
Oh yes, Trey Treadwell. Before he became a member of NGA, we did do the U.S. Treasury, and it was a fascinating question to bring up: is what does U.S. Treasury have anything to do with geospatial? Yeah. So that was a really good one.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, that was up there. It's not one of my personal favorites, but I know it was we'll call it a community favorite. Yeah. So.
So what's next for Project Geospatial?
Well, we have a couple of things. One, we want to continue to tell stories with the publication that we're doing. I want to continue to find ways, so we have definitely a scaling problem we have to address. We're getting popular. People like looking at our stuff. People are looking for us to get themselves on camera, and we're attending more and more events. I have a great volunteer team that helps me out. It's a rotating team oftentimes, but there's a couple of folks that come back and are consistent. But I want to evolve us not just into a volunteer team, but actually I want to hopefully get to the point where we're actually operating full time as an organization, and continue to do something meaningful full time. Because this is a hobby. Most people don't. They see me, they know me at Project Geospatial. But they don't realize that I do just enough consulting to do what I want to do, to get enough money to do all this. Yeah. And that's becoming an increasing problem, because I do this full time, and I need to work that balance out a different way. And if I like doing this more, we need to do this more formally, especially because this is a huge success, I think, on this side. So the next step is figuring that logistic out and encouraging people that we are around, and we will continue to do what we do. I love and encouraging people to give us feedback. I honestly don't get a lot of feedback for all this stuff. I get great feedback from the people who support us, the board members and people who come on once in a while with us. But the feedback really helps keep us going. So it helps tell me, like, am I just talking into the wind, or do people actually watch and listen to us? And believe it or not, metrics don't tell a full story. They're a little bit skewed a little bit on how people view content online. But to meet somebody who says they watched the show or read an article and they really love what we do, even if it wasn't me doing it, or we hosted something and it was perhaps one of our volunteers that did it, it's great to know that made a difference. And I'll give one more example. The Thomas Jefferson High School, I'll go back to that, because we get a lot of things from the kids that says, hey, we still share this video with our parents, and we are the people that, it doesn't have a lot of views online, but I think it's an amazing story. And just to get a couple feedback items from them that they appreciated what we did, that's the kind of thing we love to hear.
So Adam, in closing, can you give us an answer to a question you hoped we asked?
We love helping people out, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that we do not just give interviews at these events like GEOINT. I think that's actually a confusion I found people are having in the last year. We're not just at GEOINT, we're actually trying to go to a lot more events. I'm at a lot of events, but it's not just me. We actually do have another volunteer or two that does do other things. and go to other events. But it's also not about us just covering events. We still do interviews virtually. We still do a lot of things virtually. We travel a lot. We can go to you. We love telling your story. All you have to do is reach out to us. You don't have to wait till the next year for us to do an interview with you. We also help you. We can help you tell your stories from a marketing perspective that have nothing to do with audio and video. If you want us to come in, help assess or help tell that story with your marketing team, or at least evaluate how you tell that story, that's another thing we've done in the past too, is coach people how to do that on camera, or kind of give you a sanity check, because we're a safe space before you talk to an actual formal publication. We're a formal publication now too, I suppose. But before you talk to a publication that cares more about, I guess you can say, clicks and getting attention, we still care about just educating people positively, and we can help you tell a positive message about yourself before you talk to one of those. I think that's the addresses that topic.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Bill, great partnership as always.
Thank you.
Thank you for interviewing me for once. I'm truly not used to that.
Turning the tables.